Okay, with this video, I want to give an explanation of how to integrate quotations. There's a number of you that on your comments I put on your papers that you need to integrate your quotations, and so I wanted to, and I've referred you to the writer's reference to help, because there's good explanation in there on how to do it, but I also wanted to make a video here that explains how to do that. All right, and that QUOT, that's a comment a shorthand I use on in my real life classes when I write on papers. I use shorthands. On the online class, it's actually kind of easier it's not too difficult to type whole words out. Okay, never mind about that. All right, so here we go. Integrate all quotations. All quotations have to be integrated. That means they have to be tied into your paragraph by connecting them to your words. Okay, your words and the quotation have to be connected together. Okay, you just don't have one of your sentences finishes with a period, quotation sentence finishes with a period, and then your sentence also. There's a combination of your words plus the quoted words that make a complete sentence. Okay, and here are some different ways of doing that. Okay, something's called a formal introduction. Okay, and that involves independent clause, something that could stand on its own as a sentence. It has a colon as the punctuation, okay, and then it goes into the quotation. So here we go. Tolstoy, the great Russian novelist, starts the novel, Anna Karenina, with a witty remark. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Okay, so that's one way to integrate a quotation, is with a formal introduction, a grammatical, independent clause, grammatical sentence, colon, and then going into the quotation. Okay? Another way is something called the signal phrase, and you can put the signal phrase before the quotation. Unlike the formal introduction, a single phrase would be a sentence fragment, could not stand on its own. Okay, so it's just a phrase. So here's an example. Nigel Tufnell protested, but this one goes to 11. But this one goes to 11. It's from the movie Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. And so here's the signal phrase. Nigel Tufnell protested, comma, but this one goes to 11. Notice that the signal phrases are basically he says, she says, they said, whatever, then going into the quotation. So whoever it is saying the thing is named, some verb, some kind of verb, a synonym for says, a comma, and then the quotation there. Okay? Now, another way, so sometimes students tend to sort of integrate quotations the same way all the time, and that gets kind of a little boring. So you can use some variety in how you integrate your quotation, okay? So one way to do it is a blended quotation, and that's where you have a blend of paraphrase, where you've put part of the quotation into your own words, and then part of the quotation is still quotation, okay? So here's an example. When one cannot talk about something because words are inadequate, Wittgenstein commands, one must remain silent, okay? This part is a paraphrase, all right, of the original. Here's your signal phrase, and then here's a remaining quoted part. Paraphrase, especially when I do the 102 class, I talk about this at some length. Paraphrase and summary are very sophisticated things for students to do. They're a great way to demonstrate your understanding, and they're a great way to make sure that you're not overusing quotation in your writing. Okay, so this blended quotation is a nice thing to do. Okay, here's another example. In the commercial, Sam Waterston claims that retired people need insurance against robot attack because robots are everywhere and they eat old people's medicine for fuel. Okay, and so again, you have here's our signal phrase here. Sam Waterston claims. Okay, and then here's the kind of summary in the commercial, and then a paraphrase of his summary of his claim. Retired people need insurance against robot attack, and then here's a remaining part of the quotation there. Okay. Another thing you can do, just mix things up, is you can have the signal phrase after the quotation. Okay, so quotation first, signal phrase second, okay? There is no there, Gertrude Stein said of Oakland, okay? So here's our signal phrase, Gertrude Stein said, and then it's qualified, of Oakland, what she was talking about, and then the quotation came first. There is no there. Notice the comma here, okay? And another one, what is your major malfunction? The drill instructor barked, okay? That's from the movie Full Metal Jacket. And so here's the quotation. Now notice here's a little bonus explanation. With these things where the quotation comes first and the signal phrase second, and you have terminal punctuation that's part of the quotation, in this case a question mark, and you might get confused. It says, hey, I thought I needed I think I need a comma here. Where on earth would I put it? And when you go to put it, they're supposed to go inside, excuse me, close quotation marks. But when you go to put it inside, it looks like you've got two pieces of punctuation, one after the other, where it looks weird, and then outside, it doesn't look much less weird. Don't worry about that. In this case, you can skip the comma. They'll let you skip the comma this time. All right? So that's something to remember if that ever comes up. Okay? And then another thing you can do is you can do an interrupted quotation. So you can use your signal phrase as an interrupter. Like, remember the phrase commas. One of the kinds of phrase commas was the interrupter phrase. Okay? So it is sad, comma, observed Grassfog, comma, that our friend here is dead and we have no wine. Okay, so the quotation is, it is sad that our friend here is dead and we have no wine. And the signal phrase is now is an interrupter. It's sort of injected into the quotation. And another example, it is your custom, inquired Piero, to become drunk when a friend dies? Okay, and again, the signal phrase is an interrupter, and it's got a pair of commas. I'm setting it off. And then finally, not in the least, said Grassfog. I was merely making an observation about two conditions that are both true and both regrettable. Okay, now notice one thing here, though. Notice that this signal phrase here is not set off by a comma. It's got a comma going into it, but it's got a period here. And that's because actually the original quotation is two sentences, not in the least, period. I was merely making an observation about two conditions that are both true and both regrettable, period, there. And so in this case, this period is actually to show that this is one thing, and then here was one sentence, and here was another sentence. Okay, so that's another subtlety, punctuation subtlety. Okay, one last thing here to keep in mind, and this is a comment that quite often comes up with student writing. This is a shorthand that I use in the handwritten notes, YW plus QW. And what it stands for is like your words plus quoted words equal a grammatical sentence. Okay, and this is something that sometimes some students have a problem with, is that the combination of the signal phrase and the quotation have to are actually one sentence altogether, and they have to make sense. It has to be a sensible statement, a clear, comprehensible statement. And so sometimes if the original quotation, if like you've got a sort of a fragmentary quotation, then you have to adjust your signal phrase to set it up so that it makes sense, the whole thing together makes sense to the reader. So an example here, here's an example of how not to do it. Guided by Voices, the great indie rock band, Guided by Voices songs have the strangest lyrics. Okay, this is the formal introduction. This is an independent clause set off by colon. Coded ancient the creases. Okay, and so this altogether, Guided by Voices songs have the strangest lyrics. Coded ancient the creases. Okay, and the reader reads that and goes, huh? I don't get that. Now you might say, well, it's just to show you how strange their lyrics are. It's because even when I quote them, it doesn't make sense. But you yourself are not writing songs or poems, you're writing an expository paper, so that the points you make, even when you're presenting confusing things, you have to set them within clear, understandable sentences. So here's a way to modify the signal phrase to make it, the whole thing make better sense together. So we could say, Guided by Voices songs have the strangest lyrics, such as the phrase, and now we've got a comma here, coded ancient the creases. Okay, notice that much makes better sense, okay, than the previous one. But I think we can do even better than that, okay? Guided by Voices songs have the strangest lyrics, like this example from the album Do the Collapse, Coded Ancient the Creases. Okay, so notice that this sort of a nice, it's set up like the thing that's about to follow is specifically labeled as, explain, this is an excerpt of something here. Okay, and so that makes it, this is a lot clearer to when you get that weird phrase, it comes a lot clearer than it did in the first example. And then, but one more thing, even better one. Guided by Voices songs have the strangest lyrics, such as the song Things I Will Keep, which begins with the phrase, coded ancient the creases. Okay, and notice there you've even acknowledged, like, okay, this thing that follows is a phrase, it's not even a grammatical sentence. So you're kind of letting the reader know that this thing is strange in and of itself. So make sure that when you integrate it, first off, you have to integrate quotations. All quotations must be integrated, but then make sure when you do integrate the quotations that the combination of your words plus the quoted words make a grammatical sentence.